Hello everyone. Picton is one of my favorite places in southern Ontario. Located within Prince Edward County, it's a very livable, beautiful place to call home. I'd like to do a Google Map tour for everyone to give you a general overview of this gorgeous town. Let's get started on exploring Picton, how it's like to live there, what the amenities are in the town, its proximities to some of the major cities. I pulled back a little bit here and showing some of the major uh, cities along the 401 to both the east and the west here. So the closest major city um, or town that you have is Kingston. So along here to Picton, which is located roughly here, you're talking, depending on traffic, of course, roughly about an hour drive. For obvious reasons, Toronto over here is a much longer drive along the 401. You're looking at around double the time, 2 hours at least to as much as 2.5 hours. Um, at least that's been the range in terms of driving time it's been for me. Picton is located right there, and you've got Lake Ontario all the way around here, and Highway 401 is along here. All right, let's zoom back in again. And you can see the borders of the town are that red dotted line around that. You're looking at a town of less than 5,000 people in population, but just because it's not a large town, what I'd like to talk about here is a lot of the convenient amenities in the town and how, a lot of the things that you need, you probably wouldn't even need to leave Picton or the immediate area of Prince Edward County. It really is a very, very livable, very, very sane place to call home. Um, Especially if you're used to much bigger cities like Kingston or let's say Oshawa, definitely Toronto. It's a very different pace of life here. Let's talk about groceries. You've got about half a dozen places that you've got your big box stores, obviously Metro, Foodland, No Frills, Barn, but you also have the um, locally owned businesses for food. Agrarian Market is there, Ralph's Meat Market, Penny's Pantry. So it's a combination of the really, really big names like the No Frills and the Metro combined with local businesses in Picton. And of course, you can choose whom you want to favor, or a combination of both as need be. But the point is, you've got the choice of both the large businesses and local businesses to choose from. Another important thing, let's look at hardware. You've got again some of the bigger stores, Home Hardware. Canadian Tire is more general, but obviously they've got a lot of hardware there too. You've got that. There's lumber. So again, you've got about two or three choices without having to leave town. Another important necessity are pharmacies. And running the same theme, what you're looking at is you've got a lot of the big stores again. You've got Rexall, PharmaSave, but if you want to use a local business, county drugstore. So again, you've got maybe 4 or 5 choices, and they're both the large national brand stores or the local businesses. But the point, again, it's in Picton. It's not an issue. Restaurants, incredible range. I'm not even including the fast food. You've got all the usual brands like obviously McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Tim's, all of the usual stuff. But you also have, in ranges above that, you've got some beautiful locally owned pubs, a Spanish restaurant, Picado. I'm thinking of Acoustic Grill. Um, that's an interesting one. Locally owned business, which also happens to provide a stage for acoustic music performances. So some of these are very, very highly rated. Hartley's Tavern is 4.7. Picado is for 4.7 as well. You know, these are really good quality restaurants. So you've got on top of the usual fast food um, restaurants. Let's go to some of the local event space. There is a movie theater. You'd be able to catch most recent films without having to leave Picton. And the other notable place I wanted to highlight is the Crystal Palace, a little further north. And this is a public space that can be rented for private functions. And there are a lot of community events that cycle through here. Moving on to hospital, just north of the Crystal Palace, you're looking at Prince Edward County Memorial Hospital. Quite small, I believe there's 18 beds at most. Uh, but again, the point is there is a hospital in town. Public schools and separate school boards, you've got everything from kindergarten up to high school, again, within the municipality. And outside of town, obviously, Prince Edward County is a complex county. It's more than just a couple of industries, but um, two of the things they're quite popular for these days is wineries and breweries. So I'm just going to highlight that. So wineries. I mean, you've got probably a good dozen in Prince Edward County within, I'm going to say about 30, 35-minute drive of Picton. And the same applies for breweries. Quite a few um, locally owned microbreweries as well. And one other thing I wanted to mention regarding public amenities here, the Glenora Ferry dock for the line that goes from Glenora over to Adolphustown, and that crosses over, keeping you well south. You can take your car onto the ferry. I believe at peak periods it's 2 ferries serving the Glenora to Adolphustown and vice versa ferry. And if you look at here, to get to Kingston, if you went from Picton to the ferry and then across to from Glenora to Adolphustown, you can stay well south of the 401 to get to Kingston, instead of having to go all the way north again, back onto the 401, and then back south again. So that's nice to have that ferry. The last thing I'll talk about is just again, I mentioned this at the beginning of this video, just the general pace of life here is um, much more relaxed, much more calm. If you're used to bigger cities like I mentioned, Oshawa, Whitby, Kingston, Toronto, Mississauga. Pace here is much, much calmer. Traffic density is much, much less. Yes, during the summer, Picton gets busy. A lot of visitors come here. It's a gorgeous town, but it's still very, very livable, and it's not crazy. And the last thing I would say, if you do decide to move here, something that the residents do note is there are some businesses that are seasonal. They tend to either close down for the winter or the hours are significantly less. So just be aware of that. Just be aware in the wintertime when some of the retail or services close. And something that they note is when you're living here during the winter, just make sure you've got plenty of essential supplies at home. So I hope that was a useful overview of the life and pace and the available amenities in Picton. If you have any questions, give me a call, 647 532 2122, or shoot me an email, marco@gtahomeliving.com. And you can also scan the QR code for that. All right. Thanks for watching.